Hello there. Thank you for tuning in to this fiscal sponsorship info session for C4 Atlanta's ArtsForce Fiscal Sponsorship Program. My name is Chelsea Steverson. I am the Operations Manager for C4 Atlanta, and I run our fiscal sponsorship program. During this session, I am going to go through the process of explaining information around what fiscal sponsorship is, as well as how to apply for fiscal sponsorship through C4 Atlanta. C4 Atlanta is a nonprofit organization. It is our mission to provide training, resources, and the people necessary to help your creative entrepreneurship. You can find out more information about our business on our website at c4atlanta.org. So the big question always is, what exactly is fiscal sponsorship? So the legalities behind it and the way that the federal government explains fiscal sponsorship is as such. Fiscal sponsorship refers to a relationship in which a tax-exempt organization, in this case that would be C4 Atlanta, serves as the official recipient of charitable donations for another organization that is not tax-exempt, and that would be your organization, your business, or your project. So basically, this allows individuals and organizations to use fiscal sponsorships to apply for grants that would not otherwise be accessible to you, especially if you don't hold your own 501c3 status. And that allows you to raise funds so that every bit of the funds that you raise are tax deductible to your donors. Now, you are responsible for your own tax returns, and we will talk about taxes a little bit more in depth at the end. But the most important thing for you to know is you're not gaining all of the benefits of a 501c3. What you're really gaining are just the benefits for your donors. So let's talk about ArtsForce specifically and how it is different than other fiscal sponsorship programs and what makes it unique to C4. So ArtsForce falls under what we categorize as a Model C fiscal sponsorship. There are multiple different models of fiscal sponsorship, but it's important to note that we fall underneath the Model C, which has some pretty specific requirements and legal aspects that go along with it. So under the Model C, basically C4 Atlanta re-grants funds received from your donors back to your project. So in essence, money comes to C4 Atlanta, and we in turn move that money through our bank and back out to you via a check, and that's how we're allowed to give your donors that 501c3 status. Now, C4 Atlanta under Model C is not responsible for your programmatic operations or decisions. Instead, we are all liabilities are incurred by you, the third party, and you're responsible for the project pretty much in its entirety. We have no interest in making decisions around where your project is going to be held, how you're planning on selling tickets. C4 Atlanta is specifically only interested in the financial aspects under the Model C fiscal sponsorship of your project. It is also important to note that even though you will receive a 1099 and be treated as a contractor under our fiscal sponsorship program, you are not considered an employee of C4 Atlanta. That includes you, your business, or your project. So this is kind of a confusing chart, but I want to walk through it because I think it explains the easiest, at least in a visual aspect, of exactly how money moves through the Model C fiscal sponsorship. So we're going to follow the light blue arrows first. Now your project and organization is over there on the right in the yellow box. That's you. That's whatever it is that you are doing to raise money for. Now you, the project, will request money from your funders, your donors. Now this thing can include those foundations for sponsorships. This can include individuals. This can include corporate sponsorship as well. So you're going to request that money from those funders and those donors. Now, those donors are not going to give a check back directly to your project or organization. Instead, your donor is going to give the money to C4 Atlanta. So that check will be made out to C4, that donation will come through our website, and then in turn, C4 Atlanta, as the fiscal sponsor, re-grants that money back out to you so that your donors can receive that tax deduction. Now, in return for the movement of that money, you as your project are required to report your expenses and your spending back to C4 Atlanta. So now we've moved to that dark blue arrow, and by reporting that back, we in turn send the tax deduction form to your funders and your donors. So that's a little bit of how that process works and the way that that money moves. Now, there are a lot of benefits that come with ArtsForce beyond just being able to offer your donors that tax deduction. So we are going to serve as the official recipient of your donations, and therefore we handle all your tax receipts to your donors. It's a very large amount of work and workload that we take off of you because we handle all of those tax receipts to your donors. And we're also going to handle the distribution of funds to you as a sponsored artist in the organization. Now, as a sponsored artist and or administrator under ArtsForce, you're going to receive the opportunity to continue learning. That's a large part of what C4 does with our mission in terms of continuing to train artists in entrepreneur skills. So we want to make sure that you understand best practices of both finance and fundraising, because those are key parts to what makes a successful ArtsForce project. So you actually gain access to both our Fundraising 101 course and our Financial Literacy course at no additional expense to you. We always highly suggest that our fiscal sponsors actually take these courses. In Fundraising 101, we do just what it says, which is go over the basics of fundraising, including the differences between crowdfunding versus in-person solicitation versus grants versus corporate sponsorship. We talk about getting your elevator pitch together. And we spend a lot of time at the table working with the other artists at the table, actually getting that pitch together and working together to give feedback to one another. Financial Literacy 101 is, again, a one-day workshop. It's about 3 hours, and we talk a lot about not only the jargon in terms of the financial side of things, so you as the artist are able to sit at the table with a financial person and have a discussion, but we also talk about how to build a budget, how to maintain that budget, how do you handle the debt that may accrue from your business. So we talk a lot about financial literacy and best practices around your financial governance of your organization or your project. And then to top it all off, you're also going to receive some online tools, which make ArtsForce pretty special as well, including a project page on our website. So you're going to receive an opportunity to host your project and a landing page on our website. It's completely customizable in terms of how the wording or the verbiage is on that page. You have the opportunity to put up pictures, video, and this is where your donate button will also be held. So this is where your funders come to actually put in online donations. And then to top that off, we also can offer you a crowdfunding outlet via our website. It is very specific to C4 Atlanta and is pretty simple to use and has all of the same tools that you're going to get at any other major online crowdfunding site, including Kickstarter, as well as some of the other big name crowdfunding sites. So I highly suggest using our crowdfunding site, and we'll talk a little bit in depth about how crowdfunding versus a general donation page works. So here's some things that ArtsForce is not. So we are a lot of things, but we are also not a few things. So we are not a grant or matching fund program. We are not going to provide you with funding. That is not our job under fiscal sponsorship. It's actually illegal for us to do so. What we're doing is giving you the tools to be able to raise your own money. So to follow that, C4 Atlanta does not fundraise for you. What we do offer you is that Fundraising 101 course to help you fundraise, but we're not going to actually raise that money for you. And we're also not going to be able to write your grants for you. We highly suggest if you are applicable for a grant to please take the time to apply, but we're not going to be able to write that grant for you. We can review it, we can give you feedback, which I do also highly suggest, but we're not going to be able to actually put words on paper for your project. So here's a fun game. Here's a little true or false. So if I make a project under ArtsForce, I have to give up the rights to my content. That's actually a false statement. As previously stated, you do not have to give up the rights to your content. The core of your project, the actual programmatic operations, completely fall to you. We have no preference what kind of art project you do. We just want to know that it offers a public good, and that you are managing the funds for this project appropriately. That is C4's interest. If I have creative control of my project, so I can change it from the initial application. Now that is also false. So this is kind of a misconception. Now, anytime that you pitch a project months and months and months out from it happening, there are bound to be changes that happen. Small things like maybe I have to change my venue, or maybe my artist from the original pitch have had to change. The core, though, the crux of what your project is about cannot change. So the difference is if you're asking for money for, let's say, your dance show, You raise all this money for your dance show, and then a month out from the production, you decide, no, instead I think I'm going to do a gallery show. That's actually not appropriate in terms of the money that you have raised through your funders. So to understand that a little bit better, if you ask for money for one specific purpose, if you change that purpose, meaning I'm no longer doing a dance show, I'm doing a gallery show, or instead of raising money for the homeless, I'm now raising money for students, you're actually required to give all of the money back to your funders because they did not give that money with the purpose of seeing a gallery show. They gave that money with the purpose of seeing a dance show. So please be aware that in terms of the core of your project, what its actual mission is and what the actual original pitch is cannot change. But we can accept small changes, such as a couple artist changeovers, maybe like I said, the venue or location changes, maybe the date changes. Those things are bound to happen. But again, the core of what you're trying to do must stay true to what the original funders are offering you. And then I have to raise money before I apply to ArtsForce. This is also a false statement. We actually highly encourage you not to do so. If you have raised money, that's wonderful, and we're very excited that you already have money in the bank for your project. But the concern comes in that those donors that donated before you signed a contract under ArtsForce cannot retroactively receive a tax deduction. So if you have a friend, a family member, or a donor who's ready to give you a check today, ask them to hang on to it until you have received your official contract through ArtsForce and have officially signed. That way we can make sure that they get that tax deduction and all the benefits that come along with you being under ArtsForce. So let's talk some of the logistics around the costs, fees, and eligibility to be a part of ArtsForce. Now, we do require to be a part of ArtsForce that you maintain an annual ArtsForce membership through C4 Atlanta. This is $100 for the year. Now, please understand if you currently hold a membership with C4 Atlanta under our annual $40 rate, we can actually just charge you the additional $60 on top of that to upgrade you to the ArtsForce membership. Now, the ArtsForce membership includes all benefits that come along with our annual artist membership, as well as those 2 additional classes, financial literacy and fundraising 101 for free. Now, we do also want to let you know that C4 Atlanta does take 8% of 8% from all funds that are raised through the ArtsForce program. Now, this 8% covers everything from administrative fees to hosting you on our website, as well as all merchant service fees through online money transactions, which usually averages about 2 to 3%. So really, C4 Atlanta is only getting 5%. If you look at other crowdfunding sites such as Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you're going to see that they're going to take anywhere between 4 to 7% or 4 to 9% depending on your project and what you inevitably make. And that does not cover your merchant service fees that they're going to add on top of that. So you actually come out the other side of ArtsForce better with our 8% than you would trying to go to another outside source. The only thing that we do not cover the merchant service fee on is any donation made online, not via a check, but online through our donation button that is $10,000 or more. We actually ask that anybody that provides that $10,000 through the online donation button cover their own merchant service fee, because it's going to end up being an additional almost $200. So actually, if you have a donor that wants to give more than $10,000, we highly suggest them using a check, not the online donate button. Now, there are some eligibility requirements. So not only do you have to be a member, but currently we ask that you have some kind of Georgia residency. Really what we want to see is that your project is benefiting the state of Georgia, not another state, and that you and your business are registered within the state of Georgia. And you also have to prove to us that your project is artistic in nature and demonstrates what is known as a public good. So how exactly is an art project a public good? So the federal government basically says that the creation of artwork and the furthering of creative careers also contributes to the public good if it removes barriers to engagement with the work. It encourages any kind of participation or a furthering of education. It enables your community and or individuals for discovery, for them to also explore or deepen their creative and cultural lives. So basically, there are a lot of ways for your project to be a public good. The most important thing is that you can prove it's artistic in nature, and that it has this public good, which can be everything from subsidizing to low-cost tickets. Maybe you're attempting to reach into a diverse audience. If you're creating a film, does it have an educational nature? All documentaries are considered educational. If you're writing a book, does it serve a charitable purpose? Are you raising awareness around something? So there are a lot of different options, but please recognize on the application, and one of the things that our board of directors has to vote on is looking at your public good. Are you offering something that benefits your community and the cultural lives of the people that live in it? So let's talk about a little bit how to apply. So this is actually a screenshot of the front page of our website, which I'm sure that you got to see coming into this page to listen to this actual walkthrough of our info session. And at the top, you'll see a button that says Fiscal Sponsorship. If you click on that button, it will take you to a page. If you scroll to the very bottom of that fiscal sponsorship page, you're going to not only see FAQ and more information on the left-hand side, but you will see here in the yellow box a place for you to start your online application. The online application covers a series, a very large series of questions, everything from the organization, the individual's name, all the way to project information. Please note that it is a very, I don't want to say long application, but it is a thorough application. And we do ask that you give it your all. The biggest thing to remember is that the application can be saved. So even if you don't finish it in its entirety in one sitting, you are able to finish it by coming back. So please recognize that. We're not going to ask you to sit down in one setting and fill this whole thing out. So on that application, you're going to see, like I said, a series of questions and things for you to answer, including basic contact information. You can see that list there to the left, and project information. We want to know what your project is. Does it have a name? What kind of discipline? What is your start and your end date? Now, please recognize this may be the start and end date for your project, for this one project, but are you going to want to stay on with this contract after that? And we'll talk about that in depth as well. Think about the description. Again, that big question around what's its public benefit? Do you have a mission statement? Do you have a business plan? And we are going to ask you to upload a budget. Now, please recognize for this budget, we don't just want to know your expenses. We have to see a projected expenses as well as a projected income. Now, if you're going under fiscal sponsorship for a project under a larger company, so again, let's use the example of a dance company. Let's say my dance company wants fiscal sponsorship for 6 months out of our year-long programming schedule. I only need to see the budget for that 6 months. I don't want to see the budget for your whole year. That projected budget anyway. So please make sure that you have both projected expenses and projected income in the budget that you turn into us. And please make sure that it only spans the amount of time that you're showing is your start and your end date for the project under fiscal sponsorship. We're also going to ask you some questions about your fundraising and marketing. We want to know, do you have a target donor base? Have you thought about this? How are you planning on following up with your donors? How are you going to keep contact with them? We're going to ask you the big question of, are you applying for grants? It's okay for you to say no, and it's also okay for you to say yes. The important thing is that you already have a plan to apply for them. And we're also going to ask you if you're holding any events. Now, events can include everything from fundraising events to live performances, but the big thing about events is that we are going to require that you have insurance. So please be aware of that. If you are holding an event, you're going to get a series of questions. Do any of these, all of these line bullet points here to the right, do these apply to you? If none of these apply to you, usually you only need general liability insurance. But please make sure that if you're holding an event, talk with your venue, talk with the people that are hosting you, and make sure they don't need insurance. Because C4 Atlanta's fiscal sponsorship program is only responsible for your finances, we do not hold liability for your events. Therefore, insurance is on your project to maintain. So here's kind of a rough little moving forward. So applications are due on a quarterly basis. We accept applications October 15th, January 15th, April 15th, and there's actually a date missing here. We also accept them July 15th as well. So we accept applications 4 times out of every year, so please be aware of that. Once you have applied and you've turned your application in prior to or on the accepted due date, you will be contacted by me after I have reviewed your application. I'm going to look over it, including your budget. And if I have questions or concerns about anything, or I feel like it may get stopped by our board of directors, I'm actually going to reach out to you and ask you to make a couple changes and then resubmit before it ever goes to the board. Remember, we're not here just to judge you. I want to make sure that you get everything that you need through this program. So it is my job to review and make sure it's the absolute best application that it can be before it ever hits a table where our board of directors are going to vote on it. Now, once I have, if I have contacted you and all changes have been made, it will be submitted to our board of directors for review. This is actually part of the federal government's requirement for fiscal sponsorship, that it is not voted on by staff, but that our governance committee for our nonprofit actually approves these. So they're going to review your application and they'll approve. Now, usually this can take up to 7 business days on top of the 3 additional business days. So please recognize, even though you may apply on the 15th, it may take us 7 to 10 business days. So basically 2 additional weeks before you're going to hear back from C4 Atlanta in terms of your approval process. We're a very small organization, and it does take us time to get through these things. So if you're in need of something needing to be turned around faster than 2 weeks, please reach out to me as the operations manager, and let's talk about what we can do to help you with that. All right, wonderful. So you've applied. You've gotten your application in. It's on the table for the board of directors. They give it the big check mark, and it comes out the other side, and you've been accepted into ArtsForce. Congratulations. But now what? So you will receive a digital contract. We try to handle everything digitally through ArtsForce. So you'll receive a digital contract specific to your project only that will be emailed to you by us for you to sign. You will complete your W-9 as well. So we have to have a W-9 on file. Now that can be for an individual or for your company, but that W-9 is what allows us to send out the 1099 for taxes at the end of the year. We are going to email you with a request for insurance off your application if it looks like you're going to need it, as just a reminder and giving you some options of places you can go to receive this insurance. We're also going to send you an online link, again, we're completely digital, to fill out information to get your project page set up. The sooner you get that project page set up, the faster you can start earning money. And this is the time where you need to make a decision on whether or not you want to start in a crowdfunding campaign or whether you'd like to start as a general donation page. You basically get one or the other. Now, if you start as general donation, at any point during your contract, we can switch over to crowdfunding and vice versa. You may start with crowdfunding, end your campaign, and then we can move it to a general donation page. Once your general donation page or your crowdfunding page is set up, it's time for you to start raising money. And then from there, once your project is entirely complete, there is a necessary final report. These final reports are required by C4 Atlanta of the federal government. So please recognize that this is not just something that we're requesting of you. This is actually something that's requested of us from the federal government. You cannot receive final funds until the final report is filled out. And our contract, it clearly states that you have 30 days after the close of your project to get the final report in. If the final report is not turned in to us, C4 Atlanta can actually request that all of the funds that you raised during ArtsForce are returned. So please don't be that person that we have to email and ask for all of our money back. The final report is very simple. It's going to ask you questions regarding how your project went, the kind of audiences that you served, how did your project meet the mission of C4 Atlanta, or how did our ArtsForce help you meet your mission? And it's also going to require that you turn in a final budget. We want to make sure that you were tracking that information throughout the whole process. And if we have any questions regarding that final budget, we may reach out to you and ask you to give us more detailed information if we did not feel like it was thorough enough. Now, in terms of some project timelines, so the biggest thing to note is you can come under contract with fiscal sponsorship with C4 for up to 12 months. We can literally take you on for a full year. Now, we have a minimum requirement of 3 months and a maximum of 12. Now, we have many companies that stay under fiscal sponsorship on a yearly basis with us, such as T-Lane Dance Company, Maker Faire Atlanta. So they come on a yearly basis. Once you max out that 12-month contract, all you need to do is reapply, and we can bring, if you're under a business that needs to maintain fiscal sponsorship, we can bring you right back on underneath that 12-month contract. In terms of crowdfunding, we are going to make sure that you follow all best practices regarding crowdfunding. We want to make sure that your crowdfunding campaign is successful. And the best way we can do that is making sure that your crowdfunding does not go over 90 days. Most crowdfunding campaigns run 30 to 90 days. This is general best practice, and it's a way for you just to make sure that your crowdfunding campaign is not too long so people lose interest. Once a crowdfunding campaign has closed out, we are going to require a mini report from you. It's literally 2 questions. We're going to ask you, did you meet your goal? And if you say no, there'll be an additional drop box that comes down, and we're going to ask you how you're planning on moving forward. Your original budget said you were planning on raising this blank amount of money, so let's say $5,000. If you only raised $4,000 of that $5,000, we need you to tell us what your contingency plan is for making up this additional $1,000. Are you now going to apply for a grant? Are you going to cut somebody's salary? Are you looking at cutting back expenses for the project at whole? How are you going to answer for that? In terms of crowdfunding, you will receive all donor information and all raised fund information 15 business days after completion. Now, that's a maximum amount. I'm pretty good about turning that information around in between 48 to 72 hours on average. And we want to make sure you get this donor information because they donated to your project. It is legal for us to provide you with their information because we want to make sure that you follow up with a thank you card or thank you note. And we also want to make sure that you understand your funds raised throughout the process so that you can continue to keep your budget up to date with our numbers. If you decide just to do a general donation and not even concern yourself with the crowdfunding and you're going to do an extended project, again, the most important thing is that you are tracking your funds throughout this whole project so that your final report comes in matching our numbers for you. Applying for a grant. And yes, that is Cary Grant. So if you choose to apply for a grant, there are a couple stipulations that we have under fiscal sponsorship with C4 that I want to make sure that you understand. So you must have raised $1,000 in the past to apply for grants. Now, there are 100 ways that you can prove this to us. Let's say that your business has been around for a couple years. I'm sure that you can prove to us that you've raised $1,000 in donations in the past or have received support in the past. The real reason behind this and why we require you to pre-raise $1,000 is because no matter what foundation, what city, what county you go to apply for grant money, they're going to want to see a history of support. They want to know that you can raise money, not only raise it without their help, but also know how to appropriately use that money. So having $1,000 in, proof of having raised $1,000 helps solidify this information and make you and your business look more legitimate. And we also require that if you're going to apply for a grant, the C4 staff must take a look at this grant prior to it going out. And that also includes your LOI. So for those of you that don't know, an LOI is a letter of intent. So that's sometimes what you will send in way prior to ever actually sending in a grant. It basically is the first step most of the time in getting a funder or a foundation to approve you to actually apply for that grant. Now, we're going to ask that you give us 10 business days to review these because we are, again, like I said, a small staff, and I review all of them basically by myself. So the reason we ask to review them is for a couple reasons. One, C4 Atlanta represents you, and your project represents C4 Atlanta. So we want to make sure that your project is the best project it can be in terms of the way it looks on a grant. We want to make sure that your grant is spick and span. It comes in being the best grant that it can be. And therefore, we're going to give you some feedback. If you give us that 10 business days, I will review that grant and give you honest feedback in terms of what you can do to make it better. Is there something that needs to change? That way, when you turn this grant in, it represents our company and your project the best way that it can be. Any last-minute requests to review grants are probably going to be turned down. We need that full 10 business days usually to review it, make changes, edits, suggestions, and to get it back to you in enough time for you to make those changes and actually turn that grant in. So please be aware of these in terms of these stipulations in terms of applying for grants. You're also welcome to view our handbook, which is provided on the website and has multiple pages of information around grant applications through fiscal sponsorship. So that is actually the bare minimum information necessary through our ArtsForce program to get you applied. Once you have applied and you have received your approval, your congratulation email after those 2 business weeks, we do have a mandatory orientation that goes over more in-depth information regarding things like your crowdfunding page, your general donation page, how to set up a button on your website to link to your donation page. So we go through some more of that. The orientation is also where you're going to sign your contract and turn in your W-9 so we can make sure that you're ready to go. It's also the last chance to ask any questions before you begin the fundraising process. So please recognize, usually 2 weeks after the application deadline, you will receive an email about a mandatory orientation. Usually happens on a Friday afternoon, so please be aware of this and plan for it in a schedule. If you have any additional questions, you're also welcome to email those directly to artsforce@c4atlanta.org, and I will get back to you as soon as possible in regards to whatever your questions are. Again, most of these questions and the entire process from application to fundraising to closing out your project with us is available in that handbook. It talks about the difference between in-kind donations and helps just provide you literally with a handbook as you move through this process. We do suggest as you come under ArtsForce to find yourself either a legal or a financial advisor, if not both, somebody that can help you with your taxes at the end of the year. And we talk about taxes more in the actual orientation once you are accepted. But we do suggest, because of course C4 Atlanta is not a legal or a financial advisor, and we just want to make sure that at the end of the year you're ready to go to process your taxes and all of this financial information appropriately. And the best way to do that is to find somebody that actually knows this information. So again, if you have questions or concerns on any of this, please feel free to reach out to me via artsforce@c4atlanta.org. And I hope you found today's session helpful in terms of getting your project approved through ArtsForce.